Good evening and welcome to this edition of Bliss Catchers. It is 7 p.m. here in India and it's the last Saturday of the month. So it is time for Bliss Catchers. My name is AVIS, and there on the screen you can see Vani. Mom, can you just wave out? Yeah, so that's Vani. Vani and I, we are the happynesswalas. Our life's purpose, we believe, is inspiring happiness. Google us, we have a very interesting story. HAPPYNESSWALAS, Google Happiness Walas, and it should take you to all the links about us, on us. But just to give you an overview, let me tell you that Vani and I, for the last 13 years, we've been going through a fascinating, life-changing experience. We've been dealing with a crippling bankruptcy. This means that for all this time, we've been living without work for long spells of time, worklessness, and without money for long spells of time, which is at times even pennilessness. So materially, it's been a very, very dark phase for us where we have really not been able to even cover living expenses. And getting through each month has been very, very difficult. Many of you are getting familiar to the post-COVID world situation today, where we're dealing with uncertainty, we are dealing with economic strife, we're dealing with anxiety over possible loss in business, possible loss of work, and financial challenges. But Vani and I have been dealing with it and coping with it for the last 13 years. Even 2019 was very, very difficult, and so has 2020, coupled now with the COVID-19 situation. Yet, going through all of this, Vani and I discovered something magical. We discovered that it is possible to be happy despite your circumstances. We discovered that the mind can be trained to be non-worrying, non-frustrated, and non-suffering. And if you train your mind to be that way, you can be happy no matter what you're dealing with. So this phase in our life actually made us sit back and ask ourselves a very important question. Okay, we are struggling, we are unable to find work and become successful in order to be able to repay our debt and climb out of this bankruptcy situation, but can we not be useful? So while success is elusive, how can we be useful? We asked ourselves this question. And that led me in 2014 to publish my book, Fall Like a Rose Petal. The book came out in 2014 in August. And I'm trying to get you to see the cover of the book. The book deals with the lessons we have learned on how to be happy and content while living without money. The Tamil translation of this book, Udirum Roja Idar Pola, was published in 2019. Both books are available on Amazon. Apart from the book, we also retooled our business model, and we are today a small mom and pop shop, a boutique consulting firm where we offer programs for managers. We offer programs that help people understand that it is important to be happy in life if you want to perform better. So we distill lessons on life and happiness for managers and inspire them to high performance. We also conduct 3 non-commercial, live, reflective conversations across Chennai. We've been doing this for over 5 years now. The first of them is the Happiness Conversations, which we conduct at the Odyssey bookstore in Adyar. Then we do the uncommon leader, which is the second in the series, which is hosted by the Madras Management Association. And the third one, which is Bliss Catchers, which is the one that you are joining today. This is hosted again by the Odyssey Bookstore in Adyar. All three conversations explore the power and the opportunity of employing happiness in life and how we can be happy despite our circumstances. All of us go through challenges, and it doesn't mean that the world is coming to an end because we are challenged. It actually means that life is teaching us how to accept the life that we have and learn to be happy given what is. So that's what we do through these three conversation series. And today you're here for the Bliss Catchers, which is in its sixth season. We completed 5 years and we are in the 6th year, and this is edition number 53. In all this time, Odyssey has been a great support for Vani and me. Ashwin of Odyssey has been hosting this series, and this is the first time we're bringing you Bliss Catchers on Zoom. So this is the first time it's stepped out of Odyssey and onto a virtual platform given our new normals. So that's what Bliss Catchers is all about. But I'm going to give you a little bit more about the concept, the idea behind Bliss Catchers. Bliss Catchers celebrates the lives of people who have gone on to do what they love doing in life. And it's inspired by the philosophy put out by the great American mythologist and author, Joseph Campbell. Joseph Campbell said that if you follow your bliss, which is if you do what you love doing in life, doors will open, people will come into your life, and the path will unfold in front of you in the most magical, in the most mystical way. Vani and I have seen this happen again and again and again in our life. And so when we set out to curate the first conversation series, we said, why not we call it Bliss Catchers, and why not we celebrate the idea of following your bliss? Today, I'm going to dedicate this edition and the rest of the season 6 of Bliss Catchers to a very special Bliss Catcher. You know, in these 6 seasons, we have, including Vaishali and Kishor there, we have spoken to and hosted 105 Bliss Catchers. 105 Bliss Catchers, 53 editions into its 6th year. And ladies and gentlemen, I never thought a day will come when I will refer to a Bliss Catcher as having passed away. You will all recall the tragic accident that happened on the sets of the film Indian 2 in February, in the middle of February. Director Shankar was making the film. Kamal Hassan was starring in it, and we had 3 crew members who were crushed under a crane in the middle of February, somewhere off Punamalli here in Chennai. One of the crew members was a Bliss Catcher who was an assistant director to Shankar, Sri Krishna Shivakumar, that's his name. We called him Krishna. Krishna was an amazing guy, young, very passionate about making films. And in fact, on the Bliss Catchers show, he was in season 4 of Bliss Catchers, 2018, in the June edition, alongside flautist Jayant. And Krishna had told us his story. When he was about 10 years old, when his mother was taking him to school, his mom asked him, Krishna, what are you going to do when you grow up? And Krishna remembers telling his mom that, I want to be a filmmaker. He told us on the show that he had no idea why he was saying that. It was just that he always felt that he had to make films. But he ended up going to engineering school, and he says that all 4 years, every single day, he woke up with the awareness that engineering was not what he was made for. So he finishes engineering school just to be that chamattu payyan who completes a degree for the sake of the family, for the sake of society. And then serendipitously, he gets an offer to work as an understudy with Kamal Hassan on two projects, Vishwarupam 1 and 2. And Krishna told us that he felt that Kamal Hassan was and is an institution, a university by himself. So he said, all my life, I'm happy to be a student of the university called Kamal Hassan. He said, Krishna said, he was not into making films to get somewhere, to get something. He said he was making films for the joy of making films. He told me that he had, it wasn't as if his life was not challenging, but he said the sheer joy of making films kept him alive and kept him going. He said those words. And to imagine that he actually died on the sets of a film while following his bliss, while living his bliss, alongside, working alongside the legendary Kamal Hassan. You know, you know, on one side it's cruel, fate is cruel. On the other side, I don't think you can live a more blessed life and go away following your bliss. So, ladies and gentlemen, Vani and I, while sending Krishna all our love and our prayers, we dedicate this edition, the 53rd edition of Bliss Catchers and the 6th season of Bliss Catchers to the memory, to celebrate the memory of someone that we will never forget, someone that we deeply love, Sri Krishna Shivakumar. So on that note, let me move on and tell you a little bit more about today's edition. So Bliss Catchers is the celebration. You know, we pick up stories of people who have shown great courage in doing what they love doing and in following their bliss. Today's edition has two guests, and I'll be introducing them very quickly. But before I get there, let me tell you the format. It's a conversation, it's not an interview, and it's not a talk, or it's not a panel discussion, it's a conversation. So the conversation will essentially be between me and my guests. And we do not have an audience Q&A segment at the end. We don't even have the opportunity to give away our famous Bliss Catcher trophy mugs for quiz questions that we normally ask on the show. So we are going to have a full-blown conversation between me and my guests going all the way till 8:29. We are recording this conversation, so I'd request all of you to turn off your videos so we get more bandwidth to be able to go through with the recording. And you will be placed on mute at all times. We are not going to be able to unmute you. You may send chat messages to the chat through the chat window if you have a comment to make at the end of the conversation. And we will not be responding to any raised hands all through the conversation. If there is an internet or a power outage at our end, we will come back in a couple of minutes, so stay tuned. We have a 24-hour power backup in our building. And any tech issues, if you're not able to hear me clearly, if you're not able to see the video clearly, please know that we've completely tested every single aspect of the app from our side. So it could be an internet issue, or it could be a Zoom issue. So please be patient, and it'll sort out itself out over time. And post-event, if you could be kind enough to stay on, we'll finish sharp at 8:29. If you could be kind enough to stay on post-event, we can get some pictures done, screenshots of all of you with us this evening. We have over 45 plus participants already on the call, so some more may be joining. So those are the ground rules, the guidelines for today. Let me now move on and introduce my two guests, Vaishali and Kishor. So let me start with Vaishali. We met Vaishali, Vani and I met Vaishali in December 2018, if I'm right, at the Nalanda Way Youth Speak Summit. So Vani and I, we were curating and hosting conversations with some young change makers at that event. And on the sidelines, we met Vaishali. We connected with her she had done the creatives for that event, and they were super awesome creatives, Vaishali. And that's how we started talking to her. We connected on social media, we stayed in touch, and through her social media posts, we discovered that she may be having a very interesting, powerful story of following her bliss. So we set up coffee at the beginning of this year, and we invited her to be part of this evening to share with us her journey. It's an interesting story where she was naturally drawn to art. She used to draw and sketch a lot in school, but then bullying by some over-enthusiastic, boisterous classmates made her a very quiet and withdrawn person. Art went out of her life. But very interestingly, she gets reconnected to art when her career counselor points her in the direction of architecture. And in architecture school, she discovers that, art is a big ocean, and that design is what is truly her calling. And so today we're going to explore why she felt that way, and how did she come to have the courage to set up her multi-dimensional design studio, 85:15. That's a very interesting name, so I'm going to talk to her about that as well. How did she set up 85:15, which does work in the areas of graphic design, interiors, architecture, and furniture design. So amazing story there. Vaishali, thank you for joining us. I'll have you, I'll have you in conversation very quickly. But let me now move on to Kishor. We know Kishor for a long, long time, but it wasn't until a few months ago that we actually met each other. Kishor and I were part of a bloggers club. I blog regularly, and Kishor used to read my posts and often reach out and say that he found them useful. That's how we connected later on Facebook. And as I saw him post on Facebook, I realized that here's a person who goes way beyond what Vani and I do. So we consider ourselves consumers of cinema. We are very active consumers. We love films, and we sit down between the two of us and we discuss films a lot. But Kishor goes a little bit more than that. He goes forward more than that. He analyzes the mind of the filmmaker. He analyzes what could be the technical inspirations for the filmmaker, what could be the story behind the making of the film, and his video essays have always interested us. So we called him over for a coffee, and we found that here's a man who actually loves biomedical engineering, but is deeply passionate about filmmaking, films, and telling the stories of films, because he was raised on a filmy diet by his father. He set up Moving Images in 2016. He calls himself a film appreciator, which is going beyond the role of a critic. And Moving Images has put out over 35 video essays on films made in Tamil, Hindi, Kannada, and Malayalam. So four languages. And he's got more than 35,000 followers for Moving Images, and Vani and I are counting ourselves in that, surely. So that's Kishor for you. So that's our guest lineup for today, Vaishali and Kishor, two very young people. Please join me, Vaishali and Kishor, and let's get the conversation going. All of you set? Yes?
All good to go.
Yep. Good to go. Okay, fantastic. Let me start with Vaishali. Okay. Vaishali, it's a very straightforward question. If you really, loved art so much, and you were drawing and sketching all the time, that's what you told us over coffee that day. as a young kid, you would always be drawing and sketching. If you really loved art so much, did you not think of doing fine arts? How did you end up in architecture?
So, so let me start from school, right? So back in school, like you had already pointed out, I was bullied and I wasn't respected or anything of that sort. So I became a very quiet kid towards 11th and 12th, which is the main years of your, uh, career deciding years. So over 11th and 12th grade, I wasn't sure. Till then, I was doing fine in my academics, and then suddenly there was this feeling of I was overwhelmed, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't have any direction of what I'm going to do after 12th grade or anything of that sort. And then I was a single child, and with three of us in our family, very close knit. So dad figured out that, hey, something's off with her. So he took a whole month off to sit down with me and figure out what I want to do, and we still couldn't sort of get to a conclusion. So my family, I think I can count the number of people who haven't done engineering or medicine. Probably just me, I think. So that was the initial option. Medicine was the initial option, but considering that 11th and 12th were really hard for me to focus on academics, that sort of went down the road. And then so we decided, okay, hey, let's see what else is there, because we had no fine arts was not an option. I think now there's a lot of scope for that. Like I see a lot of kids take some fine arts and then move into fashion and design and all. But back then, it wasn't even presented as an option to me. So there was either engineering or medicine. So then we thought, okay, let's go see a career counselor, maybe that will put an end to this. So she started asking me questions on how did you start drawing, and I remember, like, when I was as young as 5, my mom used to go to yoga classes. So I used to go with her, and I used to sketch out all the yoga asanas in my book for her to go back home and practice. So I think 4 or 5, that's how young I started drawing. Though there were stick figures and they weren't very special, but she still has them, by the way. So very proud of it. So then we went, and she's like, why don't you look at architecture? Because I think her sister was an architect back then. So she said, I mean, the field is just starting. It's not very relevant in India yet, but I'm pretty sure it has scope. And considering that it combines your love for everything, and it's a professional degree, because your family would want you to do a professional degree at the end of the day. Like you said, we end up doing things as a society. So it was something that kind of combined everything. And I said, okay, I've never heard of architecture before.
Oh.
So I said, yeah. I was like, okay, that's interesting. I think the only other option was I wanted to be a theater artist, but that was a no. You're not doing that. Like, forget about it. So I didn't know about architecture, and she was like, why don't you see that? And then I looked at it, and that was the time I was finishing 12th. So I really had to decide. Like in a week, I had to decide. And I knew it was not engineering, because I've seen my dad in IBM, I've seen him in software. I was like, no, that's not the life I want. So, yeah, and I think that's how I closed on that option. So I didn't even have the time to close on an option, to be honest. She said architecture, and I said, okay, let's do it. It's not engineering, it's not technical as much. So why not? Let's see what. I mean, it was a huge risk, I would say, but thankfully it's paying off now.
So this is very interesting. What you're saying is art went out at high school because you became very quiet and withdrawn.
Yeah.
For all those on this call, and for the extended community, I think we all need to champion the fact that bullying is a no-no. We need to stand up against bullying, and we need to speak up against it. And I am doing that right now because that's what it can do to someone. As we are hearing from Vaishali, become quiet, become withdrawn, become depressed. So you had no other option. I mean, you could have done theater, been a theater artist, but that was a no-no. You didn't want to be in the IT space like your dad. That was a no-no. And many no-nos led you to architecture because somebody pointed you in that direction. But there's a learning here for all of us. without architecture as a background, her story of being the designer that she is today would not have happened. So, I'm reminded of Jalaluddin Rumi and his saying where he says, what you are seeking is seeking you. So sometimes we're not very clear, we're not very articulate about what we are seeking. We're not even sure we are seeking it, but it is seeking you, and life is seeking you out. And that's what I'm seeing, that without that career counselor pointing you to architecture, you wouldn't be where you are today.
I would have been probably in engineering.
But yeah, you would have done some other form of engineering,
Yeah.
or you might have ended up in another professional program. But you were pointed in that direction, and that's what makes it very interesting. As the story unfolds, we'll pick it up. I'm reminded of something that I wanted to share with you, Vaishali, which is when you look at my life. It's after 2014 that I became an author, a speaker, and a conversationalist now. But way back in 1999, that's 21 years ago, I used to write a column for the Indian Express, and a family from Kottayam in Kerala made me visit them, and an extended family of 32 people hosted me for a conversation. And I talked to them about life and happiness, and I was only 32 years old at that time. So that was my very first conversation, if you ask me. So in a way, things happen in life in such a manner that we can't put our finger on it at that time, but they happen for a reason. So you were pointed to architecture with a reason, so that you could go on and discover your calling as design. So my next question to you is on that, which is, if you moved into architecture with no particular focus or no passion whatsoever, how is it that you embraced design so seamlessly to be able to discover that that was your bliss, that was your calling? How did that happen?
So first of all, I think the one good decision that me and mom and dad took at that time was to send me away for college, because they wanted me to have that space. They wanted me to go and experience hostel, and I've lived with them my whole life. So they're like, maybe that could teach her a bunch of things. Maybe she left on her own, she'd discover things that she'd want to do. So I think that was a great decision. It really, really helped me clear my head. And after 12th and after school, it was a great change. And thankfully, I landed in a college with a bunch of extremely sweet people, which was very different for me.
From high school?
So yeah, so I was like, wow, this is nice, this is normal. So finally, I think I was taken to a space where I could be myself. Instead of having to speak a certain way or be a certain way, I was just thrown to a space where I was free and I could do anything, and no one's questioning you or commenting on everything you do. So that was first of all a great step. So, and then after I joined college, I was meeting people, discovering things, and I think after 3 or 4 weeks after settling down, I've been somebody who reads my whole life. I think I started reading as young as 4 or 5 again. So I naturally went to the library to see what's there. And because I remember one of the reasons I chose that college is because they have a really, really strong library that they invest a lot of money in. So they get books from all over the world related to architecture. So I thought, okay, let's go see what this is about. So I used to go every day after college, and I used to pick up a couple of books and come back to my hostel. So there, I discovered a lot of architects, a lot of different styles. I was going through them, nothing really caught my attention. But then there were these two particular architects, one is Tadao Ando, who is from Japan. He's a extremely minimal guy who sort of his design is around emotions. He uses elements of nature to express things in his building. Like, yeah, that Church of Light is a building that really, really inspired me. I think very early on in the course. So it's just a simple concrete block, and then there are two slits for the cross. So there's nothing else. There's no picture on the wall. There's nothing else. It's just the fact that spirituality is being represented in the form of light coming into a dark space, which I don't know, just blew my mind, right? So I mean, imagine what the architect must have thought of when he was designing this space. So all of his projects are very unique. So there's another project as well of his where he reflects an entire building in water. So it looks like a whole different space when you see it together. So that's Taravando, who was a huge inspiration. And then another guy is Jeffrey Bawa, who's an Sri Lanka-based architect. So these two people are, their practices are completely different in the sense that this guy is modern, minimalist, whereas Bawa is very rooted in culture. So you can, like Sri Lanka is written all over his projects. It just blends in there. So again, Jeffrey Bawa is he uses materials from around, he reuses wood and a lot of things. So this building that you see is the Kandalama Resort, which very interesting story. Actually, he was approached by a client to do to do this project, and as they were going through the site, he said, there's a hill on that side. If you pick up the land and on that hill, it'll be a much better view. So this guy actually expressed to the client in such a way that he was ready to sell off this land and buy that land just so this guy can work his magic. So these are the two architects who I think till date have really inspired me in many things, not just architecture, just the way that, like, he hasn't even studied architecture.
Wow.
He was a professional boxer turned carpenter turned self-taught architect.
Wow. Okay. So these were the two people, and this was what month was it at school? I mean, at engineering school for you, which year was this?
As early as the second month I was there, first year, second month.
So in the second month in college, a person who comes with no orientation or focus or even passion for the subject discovers an awakening thanks to two very unique architects and what they've done. Is that what you're saying? Isn't that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
So I remember you telling me this, sharing these details telling this anecdote in Starbucks when we had the coffee. And so I kind of got the slide ready. I'm glad you shared it with us in some detail. But here's the learning I'm picking up. So we often think that our life's purpose, the calling, as they say, will come to us knocking so that we can know when it is arriving. And that's not the way it arrives. It arrives very quietly, and it creeps up on us, and it takes up our entire life. Now, can you imagine Tadao Ando's work of spirituality being represented through light, and Baba's work, you said, is deeply rooted in culture. These are two aspects that you would normally not associate with popular notions of architecture being practiced today. So these are important aspects of architecture, but they're not popularly practiced today. And that's what caught your attention. That's what caught your imagination, if I can say. So what happened in that library to you, specifically when you were reading up on these people? What did you resolve within yourself, Vaishali?
So, like, I don't know, I was just speechless almost. I was so fascinated with their work. And like you said, it wasn't even how they've designed the building or how they've put a certain architectural detail. None of that interested me. It was the fact that they thought about this idea and that they've executed it. So I wasn't even looking at the architectural technicalities of it. I was just looking at the fact that, you're able to come up with such a concept in a given space. That was something that really caught my attention. And I don't know, I've never
And were you instantly drawn into it? Is that
absolutely.
how?
I was like, so it's not architecture, it's not the building, it's the way you express so many things through it. Because when you walk through a space, it's about what you feel, right? When you walk through a building, it gives you a certain kind of, I don't know, I think the hip word is vibe. So, yeah, I think it's just about how the architect wants to create that feeling for anyone who walks through it.
And you wanted to be there. You wanted to be doing that.
Absolutely.
So this is how it happens. I'm glad you used the word speechless at one level, and I'm glad you're searching for words, because you cannot put this in words. This is a very unique experience. I'll quote Campbell. Joseph Campbell, whose idea of follow your bliss is what has inspired the show. He says he got the idea for follow your bliss from Sanskrit. He says the world's greatest spiritual language is Sanskrit, according to Campbell, and he refers to the concept of Satchitananda, which we all hear about so often. So Satchitananda is broken up into three terms: Sat, Chit, and Ananda. And Campbell says Sat is your being, Chit is your consciousness, and Ananda is your rapture, your bliss. So he says that he didn't know what his being was and whether it was the right being or not. He didn't know what his consciousness was and whether it was the right consciousness or not. He said, I knew what my bliss was and I just followed it. And that led me to find my being and my consciousness and aligned all of it. So he says that I just followed my bliss. Now, when you follow your bliss, you cannot put it in words. You cannot describe it. It's a calling. That's why we say it's a calling. So thank you so much, Vaishali. You were very, at one level, it was a very simple answer, but at one level, it was also deeply profound. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'll pause your story here and I'll go to Kishore to get his journey started. And then I'll come back to you in a bit, Vaishali. Kishore, thank you for patiently waiting there. Let me ask you my first question. You have had a very interesting childhood. Not many parents would support raising a child on a filmy diet. And your dad did precisely that. So what kind of memories do you have from that time?
Well, I was always a hyperactive kid, so TV was the only thing that could, calm me down and make me sit in one place. So, and this was way back before cable. So every Friday you just had a movie, and that's when the family got together. And my mom and dad would discuss where they were in their lives when they watched this certain movie. Say, be it a K. Balachandra movie or something. My dad would say, "Oh, I was in college. This was when this whole movement was happening in movies, strong female leads were coming in," and my mom would have something else to add to it, like how the songs were very popular during those times. So movies and these memories, they always went hand in hand. So it was always kind of this experience, like watching a movie as well as reliving my parents' lives through that movie. So you get a multi-layered level of entertainment, if you will. So that's how it started. And then my dad started introducing me to all the movies that he had watched growing up. So every day he would open up the paper, see what's there on the TV schedule. And if there's something good, like say McKenna's Gold or Sholay for that matter, anything that he watched when he was in college and he really wanted me to watch, then he would say that tonight we are watching this. So there'll be no serial or Junoon or whatever. We are going to watch this. So that's how it went. So that was more of a bonding thing where my dad reintroduced these movies into his life through me, and me seeing those movies through him. I know it's kind of cheesy, but for a kid, that's the best thing one can ask for, right? From their parents, getting to spend that kind of quality time with them.
Did you at all go to the theaters to watch a film with your dad? Which was your first film?
So yeah, Talapati was my first film. This was back in Chennai, where going to the theater was a whole expensive affair. It still is back then too. So we had to choose which films we really went for. Usually it would be the big ones. But my earliest memory of going to the theater was Talapati. I distinctly remember all the red hues in the film. It kind of sort of, stayed. So yeah, and
So your first film was Talapati.
yeah,
Okay.
or at least that's what I believe. So I'm not changing it, even if I get to know later that it was something else.
I know these memories can be very, 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 very clear at one level and very fuzzy at another level.
Mm-hmm.
I have this memory of a very dark, dingy screen and theater in Jaipur, Prakash Theatre, and the year was 1973. And a man came on screen and said, "जब तक बैठने को बोला ना जाए, शराफत से खड़े रहो. ये police station है, तुम्हारे बाप का घर नहीं." And that was, I know I'm making a very, very meek effort at trying to be Amitabh Bachchan. But for me, my first film in the theater was Zanjeer, and it was Amitabh Bachchan. So, how did it feel when you were watching so many films with your father? At that time, did you even have an inkling that this is what you would be doing in life at some point? Doing video essays?
No idea at all. I mean, until I started this whole thing, I had no idea that this could be something that.
So what was movie going as an experience back then? Well, it was just fun.
It was fun at one level, and it was sort of turning into this whole definition of happiness, if you will, for a kid. So going to the movies, hanging out with your parents, dad especially. So of course, mom is always around, but dad, he's usually at his office. So when he comes back at 9 p.m., this is the only time you get to spend with him. And especially you look forward to those Fridays where the weekend rolls up. So he has more time to spend with you, and movies were the best thing to do together.
So I'm glad you used the word happiness, because that is what we're going to explore as we go along, with what you're doing at Moving Images. But what I'm picking up from you is what I've seen in the stories of so many Bliss Catchers that we have spoken to in this series, that childhood experiences play a very, very formative role in the Bliss Catcher defining and arriving at their bliss, discovering their bliss, in following their bliss. And so there is a deep connection between what you experience as a child, what exposure you get, and what you eventually begin to own as your own bliss. So I'm glad you're kind of validating that point again for us. Let me move on and ask you a very logical question. Kishor, I would have expected you to do a filmmaking course with so much of cinema running in your soul, if I can say. But you actually chose to do biomedical engineering, and you say that you actually love that field as well. So tell us a little bit about how this happened.
So filmmaking as like a career option or something that I could do full time never even occurred to me.
It didn't occur. Okay.
No, never. Film was something that I like to watch. I like to discuss, even though my friends weren't up for it. We'll get back to that later. But yeah, so it never occurred to me, or as a career point of view, something that I want to be in life was always something related to discovering or building something out of my own hands. Even as a kid, I would just bash my toys together and make something new out of it. So I knew that I would be good at making things. But I also wanted to be a neurosurgeon because, engineering or medicine, like Vaishali said, those were the only two options. But then I figured that I couldn't stand the sight of blood. So I went for the next best thing, which was biomedical engineering. I didn't actually know about this field when I was getting into it. I just learned that there was this college that was offering this course. So I read through all those documents and searched the internet about what this field actually is, and it felt like it was made for me in a way that my love for physics as well as mathematics, as well as making things that could be applicable in a biological field, helping humans through the knowledge of engineering. That's how they put it. So yeah, that sort of interested me. And through my college years, I knew that I wanted to be a neuroscientist. That was always right. I think about when I was in my third year, I figured that this is what I want to do. So I didn't even search for jobs. I immediately started writing GRE and whatnot, and made my way to the US. Did my master's, then did my PhD, and then joined Cleveland Clinic as a postdoc. Worked with the best minds in my field. Had the opportunity to collaborate with NASA, and it just it's sort of feels surreal when I think about it, like, whoa, all the things that I just did on and how it all fell into place. In places, there were times when things felt like they weren't going according to the plan, but overall, I'm happy how this whole thing turned out.
So are you saying that you enjoy the space of both biomedical research and academic work that you're currently doing with VIT, right? You're teaching at VIT. So are you saying that you enjoy the entire process of being an academic in the space of biomedical engineering and research?
Absolutely, yeah.
And that gives you a lot of joy.
It does.
So,
knowing that you're discovering this new thing that's going to help people down the lane, it's not a feeling that you can compare to anything else.
Okay, this is a very important question, and so I asked it early on because we are really exploring Kishor's journey as a film appreciator, and yet he has a very strong connection with biomedical engineering. He enjoys that space, and I'd like to take away a very significant learning for everyone who's on this call, that it is not necessary that you must be doing only one thing in your life. Many people say, if you're doing multiple things and you're good at all of them, then you lack focus. It's untrue. We have often found, and we find in Kishor's case again, that you can be more than proficient in more than one field and enjoy the process. So to simplify it, you can be a fabulous singer, a great baker, and a very passionate gardener all at the same time. But the beautiful quality about Bliss is that only one of the fields that you're deeply passionate about will give you an immersive, out of the world experience. And that identifying that takes time. But when you do identify that, you may be very good at and passionate about a few areas, but that one place where you lose yourself, that is where you will get drawn into more and more. And I'm curious to understand from Kishor pretty soon whether moving images and whether making video essays at this time and the space of filmmaking gives him that immersive experience. But we'll come back to you in just a little bit, Kishor. Let me move back to Vaishali to continue her story. Since I was talking about Bliss to Kishor, let me ask you a very straightforward question, Vaishali. So picking up on your previous answer, is art your bliss or is it architecture? Which space will you qualify as your bliss?
So I would say my line between art and architecture, it's not even fine, it's blurred. Like both of them overlap constantly every day in my life since college. So I think art is an inspiration for architecture and vice versa. So I don't know how to set them apart. So I would say design is my bliss because design is something that you do need both for it. You cannot just you cannot just be make a great building with just the technical parts of architecture, nor can you make a functional building with just an aesthetic facade. So you do need both at some point. So I would definitely say both of it is, and I don't know, right from college, like I would get so, like you were talking about getting lost in doing something, right? So I remember during our juries, we used to have a jury at the end of every semester, which is a main evaluation for architecture. So we're given one project and we uh, sort of go full-fledged and design everything from the rooms and the landscape and all of it. So that holds most of our marks. So I remember everyone, so we used to stay up late working for this, like 3, 4 in the morning in the days that leading to the jury. So everyone used to be on their systems, finishing their sections, finishing the elevations, making sure the dimensions are right. And I used to sit with a blank paper and still keep drawing ideas. So, and I mean, believe me, I've passed juries with just this. I've never had the sheets to, prove that. Of course, the basic drawings are there, but I have gone through juries with just putting up a blank sheet and explaining my vision of the space or my vision of how it should be. So I've been someone who's never focused a lot on, my drawing has to be perfect, and because no one's going to construct your building in college, so just let your imagination run wild. It doesn't even have to stand. You just have to learn in the process. You have to learn the possibilities. So, and I have a number of architects to sort of set an example to that as I've studied. So yeah, I would say art and architecture come together as design, and they're
And
equally
that's your
important.
bliss. And that's your
Yeah,
bliss.
absolutely.
Again, your answer is very simple at one level and very profound at another level. Art and architecture come together as design, and that's my bliss, is a simpler answer. But the more profound answer is that you are challenging status quo. You're saying, if textbooks teach you architecture in a particular way, then your imagination should allow you to question what is there in the textbook, to see what are the other possibilities that exist. That's why perhaps you have the courage to go and present a blank sheet of paper to a
Yeah.
jury and say, can you not imagine this space as this blank sheet as space? I think
Yeah.
that's very powerful. Before I explore further, I'm going to ask you a question because I use the word courage, so I'm getting a question on courage. So you challenge status quo. You you dare to go beyond the confines of normal practice, because you also quit your job and you set up 85 to 15. So this is related to that. So you challenge status quo at one level, but the courage to set up an entrepreneurial, enterprise on your own, be an entrepreneur on your own with 85 is to 15. Where does this courage come from? Where does it come from? And you're all of 26. Many people will probably want to work, gain experience for about 2 decades in any domain before they set up on their own. But you have dared to move out and do something on your own. Where is this coming from?
So I did do 2 full-time architecture jobs before I started AVIS 15. So one in Bangalore and one in Chennai. So the one thing that I found, I mean, I wouldn't say lacking. It out of my experience, like I was telling you, like we would go into work and there'd be 100 drawings for one toilet or like one room, which I felt wasn't me. So I would sort of get, I mean, as it is very important for the technicalities to be there, but I would be like, why are we making so many minute changes to one drawing while we can just, spend more time on design and more time on imagining how else can we put out that space. So that was one thing that never satisfied me in both the jobs. Like, I mean, I understand that is how architecture practice works, but I don't know. It was in me. So I don't blame the system. I don't blame anything. It's just, I didn't see a very strong point uh, in obsessing over one drawing being perfect, where most of the time the contractors the laborers, they don't even know how to read your drawing. So recently, when I just finished a couple of toilet renovations, so I go and give them a drawing, and they're like, yeah, okay, so, and continue doing what they're doing. So they don't even care about the hours that you spent on one drawing. So that was kind of what I would say. So I started kind of losing my interest in going in every day and finishing work. So then I thought, let's start exploring what else can we do with design, since it's not like I was focused on just architecture. So I always appreciated fashion. I always appreciated any form of art, photography. So I was like, okay, let's start trying out things. And I think that's when Nikhil from the Postbox approached me on Instagram, and he was like, can you do a bunch of icons for me? And I've seen I used to do graphic design work here and there in college, just for fun. So he saw that, and he was like, can you do a couple of icons and I'll pay you for it? And that was the first time somebody was paying me for something that I never thought would make a main part of my career. So I was like, okay,
So I would imagine this would have been sometime in 2018?
No, this was in 17, I think.
17, okay.
16 and 17.
Even when you were working,
Yeah, I was working. And
okay.
then this came, and I was like, okay, hey, nice. Someone's actually paying me for something that I thought was not an important part of my life. And then I think in 18 is when I met Sriram from Nalanda Way, which was, I would say, my huge break and the biggest confidence that I got that I can do something on my own, because like you mentioned, the Youth Speak Summit, right? So that was it was hard. It was a tough 2 months of almost no sleep, because I had a full-time job and I was, designing. So you saw the scale of the event. So it was a big event, and all the collaterals, and there were so many things, and I was doing it on my own, and I was doing part-time. So I think that kind of, as soon as I finished that, I knew that, okay, I think I can handle starting off on my own. I think it doesn't have to, I don't, till then, I didn't even think about it. I was like, I thought I'd be working my whole life in some architecture firm or the other. Because we don't have a business background in our family either. So it was never an option. Like, okay, let's just work 9 to 5, get the money, spend the money. So that was what I thought.
So that's how you actually took the decision to set up your own studio.
Yeah. Till then I was freelancing, yes.
Okay, I'm going to sum up your answer very quickly, but very briefly. Can you tell me what is the story behind 85:15?
Oh yeah.
The name.
So 85:15 is the concoction of coffee is to chicory. So it's the blend that you get in all of our South Indian homes. So it's something that I've grown up with. I've heard my mom go to the store and say 85:15, and I wouldn't understand what it is, but she and the shopkeeper had an understanding. So he would just pack and give, and I'd always wonder what is going on here.
So it's the aroma. It's the aroma of bliss. It's the aroma of bliss in your life. 85:15, right? Yeah. Just like aroma of the perfect filter coffee blend.
Filter coffee, yes.
I wish it was already Sunday morning and we were all sipping coffee. But quickly, let me say, for the benefit of the audience, some key takeaways from what you just said. Let me share that. One, she said, it wasn't me doing all those designs. The architectural designs, submitting them, 9 to 5 job. It wasn't me. That was something that she was very clear about. And that's how it happens. That's how it grows on you. And the second thing she said was, if I can do it with Postbox, if I can do it with Nalanda Way, then maybe I can do it on my own. And you know where this courage is coming from? This courage is coming from a very simple understanding that many of us sometimes overlook, which is that life is a one-time limited period offer. If you're not going to live your life the way you want to live it, then you're squandering your spiritual talent. Your spiritual talent is infused in you at the time of birth, and you're squandering that spiritual talent and you're wasting it. So the courage comes when you realize that, man, I have only this one life, And it doesn't matter whether I'm 26 or I'm 52. When that awakening happens, you take the deep dive.
Absolutely.
You take the plunge. Isn't that how it happened to you, Vaishali?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right?
And now I don't think I can picture myself in any other way.
You can't
I'm
picture
so
yourself.
glad. Yeah, I'm so
Yeah, I
glad
know.
I
The aroma
found the
of
country.
bliss is very strong. After 85 to 15, you will not want to change the blend ever. Okay,
Yeah.
that's how it happens. Kishore, let's come back to your journey, and let me ask you. Moving Images was set up in the United States when you were in the US, and it was set up in 2016. Now, around the time, if I remember your career graph, you were completing your masters, or you'd done your masters and you were doing your PhD, and the rigor of academic work and research must have been so strong. How did you get the time and the inspiration to set up something like Moving Images, which actually required a deep dive into the mind of filmmakers and the whole idea of how a film gets made? So that's a completely different realm. How did this inspiration happen to you?
2016 wasn't when I finished my master's. It was when I finished my PhD. So I had a degree, but no job. I was doing some part-time stuff. I was looking for jobs, but this was also a time when there was a lot of uncertainty. So I needed to throw myself at something creative. I did have like a design studio before that. I was making book covers for the Bloggers Club, if you remember, book covers, posters, and whatnot. But it wasn't enough. It wasn't. I was always working under someone else's supervision on what they wanted. And like I said, movies was always something that I wanted to talk about, but there weren't a lot of people who actually wanted to listen. So I figured, okay, I've done my PhD. I'm looking for my job. I have some time left. Let me do something useful. And when I started, all I had was an idea for just one video. It had to be Talabadi. That was my first video.
It was your first video essay, okay.
Yeah, it was my first theater experience. It was my first video from my channel. But that was the only idea I had. I talked about it to a couple of my friends who were interested in movies, and they said that actually sounds nice. Why don't you start it? And this was a time when online reviews were the new thing, and bashing movies was the norm. People like to bash our own Tamil movies. So I thought like, okay, but what about all the good movies we have? Who's going to talk about that? So I just thought, okay, maybe I should talk about this. And that's how it started. I did have a little bit of editing experience. Before that, I made 1 or 2 short films, but that's about it. Everything else I had to learn. And, when you are done with your master's and your PhD, the one great skill that you learn is how to learn, actually. That's the greatest skill. That's what I even told in my interview when they said that, oh, you have these certain skills. Our research is such and such. And I told them that the one thing that I learned is how to learn, and how to learn efficiently and how to learn quickly. So if you just give me a chance, it would work. But the thing that made me realize that was actually Moving Images. So within 2 weeks, I was able to pick up how to do these kind of video essays, how to do audio editing, how to do video editing, how to present it in a way that it's not boring. So yeah, it was a journey of discovering that I had a talent in something else, something that no one had been doing actively. It wasn't like something I saw and wanted to do. It was entirely new, making new path, and it was exciting. And it also gave me a sense of control in a point in life where everything else was uncertain. Whether I was going to stay in this place, was I going to move, what kind of job I was going to get into, that was all uncertain. But this, I knew I had total control over.
So what I'm hearing you say is that Moving Images happened at a time when your life was faced with a lot of uncertainty on the professional front, and you wanted to be in control of something that you were doing, and moving images gave you that sense of control of making video essays. But
Yeah.
that was also a medium that you taught yourself how to
Absolutely,
do
yeah.
it, right? Did you have to work alone, or did you have partners?
No, I had to work on. Like I said, I didn't even have friends who would listen to me talk about movies. So let alone them helping me with this kind of thing. But I preferred working alone. Like I said, total control, right? I'm not depending on anyone. I know this goes against people believing in teamwork and all, but this is just one instance where I absolutely wanted to work alone,
So
and I enjoyed working alone.
that was the question I had. Thank
Yeah.
you for clarifying that. So you enjoy working alone.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to pick up a couple of learnings from what you said, but before that, let me ask you the next question. How has moving images and the idea of following your bliss, you know, working into the nights and making your video essays, 35 of them over the last 4 years, how has it shaped you as a person? Has it helped you evolve? Do you see yourself as a very different person now? How has it helped you?
Wow, I never thought about it that way, like how it has influenced me as a person. But I do know that it has bled over into my professional life as well. There's a lot of stuff that I'm learning from moving images that I apply to my research, my bread and butter. And there's also a lot of stuff from my research that has actually jumped over to moving images. So there's I kind of found this happy medium between those two fields, and it has made me appreciate that you don't have to box everything into its own thing. There can be, like Vaishali said, art and architecture combined. So there can be a lot of overflow between them, and it's the overall experience that of making things by yourself that gives you the happiness.
And that has come to you through doing moving images?
Absolutely. It has been a journey. Like I said, it has been a journey of teaching myself, learning new stuff. Every new video is it's a new challenge. I try to not.
Did we lose you there? Yeah, we can hear you. Can you say that again? Every new video is?
Yeah, every new video was, yeah, it says my internet connection is unstable. Sorry.
Yeah, but it's fine now. It seems fine.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, every new video was a new challenge. I never did the same thing that I did in a previous video. So if, for example, be it Heram, where I didn't have a good print for the movie, I collaborated with another architect friend of mine, Samir, and we decided to build Saketram, the main character's room that they show in the climax. We just decided to build the whole room in 3D and just go through his belongings and tell a story through that. This was something that none of the other video essays that I know of has even attempted to. And it was exciting and scary. We didn't know how people would, take to it, but surprisingly, people liked it. And it's that kind of joy of discovering new things, discovering new ways to present your ideas, constantly challenging yourself, constantly learning new things. That's what I've seen, that I would say that I've discovered about myself, that this kind of a path is the one that gives me a true purpose.
Very, very powerful answer there. How it gives you happiness, I don't want to even add to it, but here's what I want to say, that when your life is falling apart, and this is for the benefit of everyone listening in as well, when your life is falling apart, when you're faced with a lot of challenges, life will actually give you an opportunity, an avenue to hold you together. In a way, if I can borrow a financial industry terminology, Bliss is a special purpose vehicle. Our life is often going to be at different points be challenged. Our life is going to have, in equal measure, it's going to have pain, loss, grief, all of that. And yet, bliss, when it steps into the picture, it does not necessarily make things easier, but it makes the process of going through your challenges more bearable. It gives you a sense of happiness despite your circumstances. Isn't that what I'm hearing you say, Kishore?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? So, you know, when he's describing the Saketram room, you should have watched Hey Ram to understand the complexity involved in recreating that room. And that challenge there is something that he joyfully goes through to create that, even as he's facing a lot of professional challenges on the backside with his research work and with his day job. So very interesting that you shared this. Just for the benefit of the audience again, Kishore, I want to quickly say that the film appreciator basically is trying to understand the mind of the maker of a film with the mind of a seeker. So the film appreciator is bringing not a critical point of view into the process of the video, creating the video essay, but actually is trying to go into the mind of the movie maker with the mind of a seeker, and saying what could the maker have been thinking when making that film, and what are the technicalities involved. I think I've seen a few of your, several of your video essays, in fact, and I'd strongly encourage those who have not seen to go to Moving Images and see his video essays. They're pretty interesting, and you'll even wonder, wow, is that how they actually made it? And you'll come back feeling very encouraged with the process of filmmaking. I'm going to come to my absolute last question for you, Kishore, before I go to Vaishali for a last question. I'm keeping a watch on time, but this is a very important question because it ties very directly into what you just said. So where is all this adding up, Kishore? When you do Moving Images, you don't seem to be monetizing it. It's a free platform. Anybody can go there, watch it, and they sometimes critique it on their own. And you put in a lot of effort. For example, in 2018, how many videos did you make? About 10, 12 videos?
I think it was 14.
14.
Yeah.
In 1 year, you made 14 videos on 14 films. Mm-hmm. And that means so many nights you spent making one video. Yeah. And during the day, you had your challenging day job with uncertainty written all over it. So where does it all add up? You're not able to monetize your bliss. Does that bother you at all?
Not at all. I feel it kind of gives me this whole new freedom. I'm my own boss. I don't have to answer to anyone. I know it might come off as a little bit arrogant, but having this other job in my life, even though I enjoy being a bioengineer, I'm still under someone, I'm following someone else's direction. And there are a lot of stuff that I want to do that I'm kind of restricted due to various reasons. But this is my own little thing. This is my own little creation, and I'm free to do whatever I want to do with it. I mean, if I do get paid from it, that would be nice, but that's not the end goal here. The thing is to, put out whatever I'm making out to the world and receive feedback and improve my own skill, and in turn improve myself, and then put out more of these work out there. That's the only thing. That's the only transaction I see here. So there was never a question of money before, and I don't think there ever will be when it comes to Moving Images.
When it comes to Moving Images. But one last question, I'm tempted to ask it, so keep the answer very sharp, very tight. You seem to be riding two horses. Do you see at some point you actually choosing one of them, and could that one be filmmaking?
I don't think so. Like the way I feel it, it's like two horses tied to one chariot. They're both, pulling me forward. I learned, like I said, there's a lot of interplay between these two fields. They kind of feed off each other. It has come to a point where I'm making a 3D film, where filmmaking by itself is being, put on halt due to the whole COVID situation. I'm making a film all by myself, again, the way I like to work. And it's entirely in 3D. And that 3D thing is something that relates to my research. I learned those skills from my research. And whatever I learned from moving images and how to write an interesting script, that flows over to my research, where I learn how to put my scientific ideas in a very effective way in my papers. So right now, there's a very happy medium. These are two horses pulling my chariot forward. And I'm not even thinking about where this is taking. I'm just enjoying the ride.
You know, you are such a unique bliss catcher for me to be in conversation with, because you kind of amplified the central idea of bliss. You know, on one side, people imagine, and it is true, that you have to take a lot of tough decisions to be able to follow your bliss in life. And on the other side, we have seen time and again that bliss can be a profitable opportunity. Bliss can pay bills. We have seen that as well. Yet, the central idea of following your bliss is to be not knowing where it is taking you, and yet enjoy the journey. Rumi says it very beautifully. He says, the journey is the reward. So the reward is riding that chariot, two horses, one in a way which is helping you pay your bills as well, which is biomedical engineering and academic and research, the academic role and the research role. And the other is what makes you come alive, which is films, and enjoying the process of learning from both, sharing from both, and enjoying the journey. I think that's fascinating the way you described it. Thank you for sharing that. Let me go to Vaishali for your last question for the evening. Vaishali, you did mention that you don't come from a business family. You don't come from an art or an architecture family, and you actually came from a very dark space in life, from high school to to being pointed in the direction of architecture. And then you're suddenly in a span of like less than 10 years, you are an entrepreneur, and you're a designer entrepreneur. So where do you think your bliss is leading you? Have you sat and quietly reflected on where are you going in life?
So, like you said, it happened so fast that I've never had the time to sit and think about what is happening. But I know for a fact that this is going in the right direction, because I don't know. I just like Kishore pointed out, not having a boss kind of gives you your completely do what you have in mind, sort of from the scratch, from getting a client to finishing the project. It's all on you, which is both good and bad, I would say, because there have been months where there have been no projects, and instead of looking at it as a tough period, I take it as a push that I need to go out there and meet people and get new projects. So entrepreneurship has been, I don't know, like I said, it just hit me so fast that I haven't been able to process it. So I think I don't know. I think I'm just taking my own route of entrepreneurship, that because everyone tells you, you need the discipline, you need the routine. And to be completely honest, I haven't completely figured it out yet, but I'm definitely trying. And it's nice, because it's how do I put it? I'm just at a loss of words, because it's
what happens when have you ever thought what happens if this whole idea fails? If particularly in a post-COVID situation, there are so many uncertainties over independent businesses, small businesses, design shops like yours. What happens if the idea fails?
Well, if it fails, I think one is, in India, unfortunately, we look at failure in a very bad sense. But I would look at it as I've still set an example for a lot of women to follow what they want to do, because I mean, even in my community, I have cousins and family who are supposed to get married at 21 and 22, and I get asked every day, why am I doing all this? All of this can wait. You just go get married. But then I keep telling them that all of that can wait. Like, let me do what I'm doing, because I don't want it to fail. I really hope to be an example for women to come out and do something on their own, because I've had people call me, and when I pick up the phone, they're like, "Oh, can we speak to who's in charge?" And I'm like, "I'm in charge. Why are you expecting a man to be in charge on the other end? You know, like speak to me. Tell me what you want." So I just really want to, over the next few years, kind of make it normal for women to be as successful or as business oriented, because I can still do my GST, I can still send invoices, I can still do everything that they can do. So that's
And what's the one reason why you would, what's the one reason that why you would put yourself under so much of scrutiny, under so much of stress, complexity of running a business? What is that one reason?
I it I just cannot imagine myself doing anything else. I mean, you just follow your happiness, you just follow your dreams, and well, it is tough at times, but at the end of the day, I wake up every day and I don't have an agenda. Like one day I might be running around for my printer, the other day I'm sitting and doing paperwork the whole day. And it's just what it has taught me in life. And it has it's not like, okay, 5 o'clock, you leave your job and you come back home. I'm thinking about AFS 15 24/7. And
So it makes you more imaginative.
Yeah, definitely.
It fills your life with so much of joy, following your happiness, following your bliss.
Yeah.
And it's who you are, because you can't imagine yourself doing anything else. That's what you said.
Absolutely not.
You know, this attitude, ladies and gentlemen, is a very, very powerful attitude to wear on your sleeve. If it fails, it fails. But I hope it doesn't fail, is what she says. And we all hope for that too. But if it fails, it fails. Look, now let's just step back and understand that what if there was nothing called failure? If you actually look at life very dispassionately, the idea of money is a human invention. The idea of success and failure is thrust on us by society. It's a societal expectation. But supposing you took away all these elements, money, success, failure, out of the equation, what is it that you would love to do? Go do that. Follow your bliss, follow your happiness. That's what she's saying. And when you do that, and when you do that consistently, and you layer that attitude with a deep understanding of business prudence, income minus expenditure must always be plus. It must always be a positive figure. And ask me or Vani, we can tell you 13 years of bankruptcy, we know how numbing it can be. So I'm teaching you this, I'm telling you this because that's the cardinal principle to remember in business. So when you layer this attitude of I will do what gives me joy with business prudence, then you've not only mastered the art of following your bliss, you've actually learned to live in this world and yet be above it. Consistently in all my questioning this evening, Vaishali has come up as that very plain girl next door, very quiet, but giving me very simple answers at one level, but deeply profound at another. So thank you, Vaishali, for being who you are. It's been a very interesting conversation. We are, we are coming to the very end of this evening, and so I'm going to do a quick summary of what I'm picking up from both journeys. First of all, let me thank both Kishor and Vaishali for this conversation. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being such a sport and saying, hey, let's do it on Zoom if we can't do it live. Love you both for that. Both of you shared your journeys in a very uninhibited fashion. Vaishali, if I remember right, this is the first time you're doing a conversation, sharing your journey, and I do hope many more such opportunities come, and you have more anecdotes and more stories to tell people. And Kishore, I do hope someday you will make that not just a 3D film, but you will make a film, and you will still be riding that chariot, okay? And you will be an example to people that you can do this and that. It is not about this or that. It's about this and that, and I can balance both. So fascinating conversation there with both of you. If you look at both their stories, ladies and gentlemen, both of them had dark places where they started off. Vaishali very evidently was pushed into a dark place, quiet, withdrawn, art had gone out, and then she gets pointed in the direction of architecture, and then she comes alive with the design. Kishore is going through professional uncertainty, confusion, chaos at one point in time. He, leaps into making video essays in the hope that it's something that can give him control, give him that sense of working alone and a sense of fulfillment. And he actually discovers joy. And he discovers that this is what is giving him joy. And he sees a synergy between his life as a biomedical researcher, biomedical engineering researcher, and as a film appreciator. So both stories start at one point with darkness, but both find the light, so to say. And that's the beauty of life. We will all go through challenges. We will all go through darkness. We will encounter pain. We will encounter grief, sorrow, loss. But you know what makes life worth living? It's being happy, doing what you love doing. Now, being happy, happiness, following your bliss cannot solve your problems for you. It cannot necessarily solve your problems for you. But what following your bliss can do for you is it can make you deal with your problems better. When you're happy, you deal with life better. You're more, spirited in dealing with the challenges. And following your bliss actually makes each day look forwardable. You look forward to it. It's your ikigai. It's what you wake up to do every morning. Now, if you have figured that out, what is it that you wake up to do every morning? If you have figured that out, then you have figured the biggest secret of life. For Vani and me, at a material level, we continue to be challenged. But our ikigai, what we wake up to do every morning, is to inspire happiness, is to tell stories of people who have gone on to do what they love doing. We distill lessons on life and happiness for people. And that's what makes us come alive. So what I'm picking up from Kishore and Vaishali, and I'll thank them for that, is please don't postpone your happiness, people. You live only once. And I'll quote, not Rumi this time, but I'll quote Hafiz, who came after Rumi, a 14th century Persian poet. And he said that the beauty of the rose is very dear. The beauty of the rose is very dear. Enjoy its petals when they are here, because as soon as they come, they're gone. And that's the truth about life. As soon as a moment arrives, it vanishes. And so with every passing moment, our life is ticking away. We are all speeding towards our deaths at different speeds. So don't postpone your happiness. And if at all you're scared about taking that leap of faith, saying COVID has come, today it's COVID, last year it was something else, next year there will be something new. There will always be a reason to postpone your happiness. But if you're at all unsure about life, and if you're at all scared, then lean on Joseph Campbell. Come talk to Avis and Vani and understand how following your bliss helps open doors. Talk to Vaishali, talk to Kishore, and take that aroma of bliss from Vaishali, and take that joy of riding two horses on a single chariot from Kishore. And that's what you need to look at. We have 100 other bliss catchers that we have talked to, where people have said that when they follow their bliss, magic happens. Ultimately in life, there is no logic, there is only magic. This is what we have learned. So thank you so much for doing this with us, Kishore and Vaishali. I would have normally given you the Bliss Catcher trophy at the end of this, but tonight we'll leave you with just a long distance happiness hug. And thank you for doing this. I'll close with some announcements. If you liked this program and you would like to receive invitations to our future programs, I'll encourage you to take down this number here and send us a request to be added to our mailing list. The number is 98409-78823, 98409-78823. Send us your name, email ID, mobile number and the city you live in, and request to be added to our mailing list, and we'll be happy to add you. We don't spam, so you'll receive only invitations to our events. And please do spread the word. Please do join us for future events. Our next event is on the 27th of June, which is the Happiness Conversations, where we have Ghazal Raina, a wonderful lady who's been through a very traumatic phase in life. She has, after 18 years of a physically violent relationship in her marriage, where she was a victim of domestic violence, she walked out on her marriage. It ended up in being a messy divorce and has caused estrangement with her young son. And yet she has walked the path of a higher purpose. She has walked the path of serving others. And she has, most importantly, through pain and loss, discovered the value of happiness. So join us for that conversation on 27th June. That will be the last Saturday, 7 p.m. here on Zoom. And please look us up, Happiness Walas. Google us, HAPPYNESSWALAS, Happiness Walas, and stay in touch. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Please stay back for a little while as I pause this recording and invite you all for the photo session so we can take a few pictures. So thank you once again for joining us, everyone.